Southwest Missouri area. Tell me what that's like for you.
Well, it's kind of it's a way to start my day. Basically, I'm big on routines.
Mm-hmm.
So I always start out my day in the gym. Generally, I'll lift or do yoga for about an hour, and then I'll run for a little bit, and it kind of gives me a opportunity to clear my head, kind of think ahead to the day, and just kind of get my blood pumping. And so I was actually interested when you invited me on. I've never really thought about the connection, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
between the two things. So yeah, I look forward to talking about it.
Yeah. So tell me what your business is and how long you've been in that line of work.
Sure. I'm the president of Archer's Bow Media and Marketing.
Okay.
We work with small to medium sized businesses. Right now, I would say about 80% of our clients is restaurants, coffee shops, and bars. But we're trying to move more toward, we want to keep that side of the business, but we want to add nonprofits
Hmm.
and we're kind of working toward that. Yeah, that's what I do. Small to medium sized businesses, civic organizations, community groups. And I kind of I've been doing that for, well, I've owned my business since 2018.
Oh, okay.
I've been in mass media every year that starts with a two. So I started in the newspaper industry. The last 5 years before I started my business, I was the publisher of the newspapers in Monette and Cassville.
Okay.
And my first day on the job in 2013, I was told, okay, well, our revenues are plummeting and we've cut expenses as far as we can cut them. Here's the key. Good luck. And so
Right.
at that point, I had known, I know quite a bit about digital advertising, but at that point, I was like, okay, I don't have a choice. I have to make myself an expert at this because, even 10 years ago, there was a ceiling on how much you could make on ink and paper. So that's what I did. I closed my door and bothered everybody I could bother and took every seminar I could take and did trial and error. I do this happens. I do that happens. And uh, gave that offered that to our clients. And long story short, from 2013 to 2016, our revenues increased by something like 70%, I want to say.
Oh, that's
We got a write up in Editor and Publisher magazine, which is what you see over my shoulder there.
cool.
These two, small newspapers in Southwest Missouri. So that was a cool thing. 2018, the opportunity arose for me to start my own business, and my wife and I have always liked Springfield, and here we are.
Okay, so how scary was it for you, or did you jump into it with a free spirit?
Um, I'll be frank. It was owning a business is something that I've had on my mind for a while before I did it, but I like that security of having, that check every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I like that. If I have a bad 2 weeks or a good 2 weeks, I get the same check.
right.
Um, it kind of around 2018, it kind of got to a point where it was actually more risky not to start a business.
Mm.
Um, and that's one of the things that I was telling my wife when we were making this decision. I said, if I have 20 clients and I have a horrible week and I lose three of them, that's only a small percentage of our income. If I'm at I'm not going to name a newspaper, but if I'm working at a
Right.
newspaper and and I have a bad week, if I have a bad week, that's 100% of our income.
Hmm.
So it just kind of got to a point where it was less of a risk to start a business than to not.
How did you handle it 2 years after you started?
Yeah, well, restaurants, coffee shops, and bars, most of our business. So I think I don't
Yeah.
really have to tell you that 2020 was challenging. Took on some political, which I generally didn't wasn't planning on doing, but it kind of helped us survive 2020.
Hmm.
Um, and then as we slowly started to come out of COVID, started to build the business back up steadily. So yeah, I'm incredibly proud of number one, what we've been able to do starting the business,
Hmm.
and then basically rebuilding it from scratch in 2020. So it's been a challenge. I mean, there's no there's no 2 days that are alike.
Mhm.
But I really enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge, and also I enjoy the freedom that it provides.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
as I was telling you before we went on the air, it's yesterday I had an appointment that canceled, and the Springfield Cardinals were playing at home at 11 o'clock in the morning. I said, well, I'm going to take my daughter,
Yeah.
and that's one of those things that wouldn't have been an option if I were, working for someone else. So
Yes.
it's nice.
That's fantastic. When did you start running? When did your running career turn into, if it started as a hobby, when it did it get a little more competitive? What are the ins and outs of running for you?
Well, there's actually kind of two different time periods there.
Okay.
It was in high school. I want to say it was my freshman or sophomore year. In gym class, we had to
Mhm.
do a mile run on the track,
Mm.
and I wasn't very athletic at all. I wasn't ever picked first for anything.
Mhm.
I was more, about academics. And we did the mile run, and I'm there with the, star football players and the star basketball players, and, all this and all that. And I won
Mm.
pretty handily, and it didn't really feel like I even exerted myself that much, to be honest with you. So I was
Okay.
like, maybe I have a
Ah,
talent here. So I joined the track team my sophomore year. Senior year, I won conference in the 2 mile, qualified for sectionals. Didn't got a cold the week of sectionals, so didn't make state. That
oh,
was pretty bad timing. But yeah, did had a pretty decent high school career. I was interested in continuing long distance running in college. I didn't get a ton of interest. And I think at that time, I had told myself, okay, well, I'm just going to do 5K runs and things like that. And it didn't materialize without the structure of coaching and without the set time every day to do it. It just kind of fell by the wayside. And so there was really kind of a 20 plus year gap,
mm,
um, as far as running. And then shortly before, I want to say in the later part of the last decade, and I've been pretty fortunate most of my life. I can, eat or drink whatever I want, however much I want, and I looked fine. And Father Time caught up with me like it does everybody, and so it's like, well, I guess it's time to go to the gym. So I picked it back up. I don't run competitively, but I do. I've ran as many as I don't want to tell you a wrong number, probably as many as 25 miles a week. Right now, I don't do
yeah,
as much. I run about 10 miles a week.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, and it's probably the difference between, I learned the hard way, the difference between running at age 17 and running at age 40.
yeah,
Is what made me good at long distance running competitively, when I was, in high school, was whenever
mhm,
my brain told me to slow down, I would speed up.
yes.
When you're in your 40s, when your body tells you to slow down, slow down.
Warning, warning, take
Yes,
heed.
yes, yes, and it's really hard to, and I mean, it seems like a funny thing, but it's hard to unlearn that once you've learned it.
Yeah,
And so I've had to. That's one of the things that's kind of been a challenge for me. If I get a tweak, or my ankle or my foot's a little sore, it's, hey, maybe I need to take a day or two off here. um just trying to, a little more body maintenance.
yeah.
um so yeah, that's pretty much the full extent of my running career.
So I've noticed a lot of similarities between people that are entrepreneurs and runners. They fall into that type A category. Would you describe yourself as a type A personality?
um what does type A mean to
A
you?
little more, well, to me, it means more structured, very routine, not so laid back, kind of, B kind of rolls with the punches more, not really tied to a calendar. That's kind of how I look at it.
I'm probably a combination of both, I would
Yeah.
say.
Okay. Fair. Fair.
um I routine, I thrive off of routine.
Yeah.
One of my biggest weaknesses is when anything knocks me off of my routine.
Mhm.
I kind of have a hard time getting back
Yeah.
onto it. So I'm very much on routine, but I'm also I'm not so structured that I can't, make a course correction whenever I need to.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I don't really, um, I I hope I adequately answered that question.
No,
I'm not sure if
yeah,
I
that's
did.
great. I think that's good when you can recognize when and where those times are, like taking your daughter to the ball game because your schedule
Sure,
changed, you know.
sure.
I always thought of running kind of as a great teacher. You know, you learn endurance, perseverance, um, so many things like that. What do you feel like it's taught you, especially when it comes to your business?
Well, I think that exactly what you just said there, endurance and perseverance, kind of what I mentioned a while back, um, when I was doing long distance running, when your body says, slow down, speed up, physically, I've learned to move away from that. But from a mental standpoint, as far as, there are going to be times you don't feel like doing things. There are
Yeah.
going to be times where, you just have to, figure out how to, push yourself to get through. It's kind of like today, it's a rainy day.
Hmm.
Um, and I kind of, the older I get, the more seasonal stuff kind of hits me a little bit. So I'm having to motivate myself a little bit more today than usual. Um, but it's, I think that that structure and that, anybody who said, I hate the phrase "slow and steady wins the race," because it's absolutely not true. It's fast and steady wins the race.
You think?
Um, yeah. Um, so, yeah, I would say those lessons as far as, perseverance and, hanging in there whenever times get rough, that's kind of rolled over into my business career.
So what do you have, or do you have any goals for running and fitness in the next year or so?
Uh, I'm kinda gonna play that by ear. Like I said, right now, I'm only running about 10 miles a week.
Hmm.
My daughter starts preschool this summer, so I don't know if
Exciting.
that'll, change my schedule or not. I was doing trail running.
Oh,
I was doing trail running, not now I run on the track, at the
yeah.
gym. Um, but I kind of there's parts of trail running I miss, so I might get back into that. Really, I'm just gonna have to, see how, parenthood every day's new. So,
Yeah.
kind of see how my schedule changes and, things like that.
A lot of people have only done one type of running. Oh, I take that back. Many people have tried the different ones, but I don't know if a new runner realizes how different trail running and road running are.
Yeah.
Talk about how that was for you going from one terrain to the next.
Um, hmm.
Was it easy for
That's
you?
a
I found it very challenging. I don't know. Some people do it easier than others, maybe.
If I were doing it competitively, I'd probably find it challenging.
Mhm.
And it is challenging to an extent. I mean, for one, you have to account for going up and down hills. I try to avoid, trails that are overly hilly or
Mhm.
overly, rocky.
Yeah.
So that I usually just run the greenways. So I would I if I were doing it competitively, I would probably it would probably be a different, thing. But I mean, it's definitely different than running on a track. That's for sure.
How do you think you will show, lead by example probably for you, but how do you plan to teach your daughter the importance of physical activity in her lifestyle as she grows up?
Well, hopefully by example. About 3 days a week, I take her with me to the gym.
Oh,
She goes to daycare and she, plays with her friends, while I'm working out. So, she sees daddy exercising, and,
right.
I'll pick her up from daycare some days, and she'll go, "Daddy sweaty," and, so she knows what I'm doing. And she does, they have little activities when she's in daycare, like she does. They do some kind of like a toddler yoga. I haven't. She does her, toddler yoga moves at home. I haven't personally seen, what they do in the
Yeah.
class, but, she's getting a good start as far as that goes.
Tell me a little more about business and how you feel like where the pitfalls would be if you didn't have running.
Where the pitfalls would be. I think more than anything, running is just kind of part of a way to start my day.
Mhm,
So it kind of sets the course of. I think it's easier to get things done whenever you accomplish something, first off in the
mhm.
morning. So okay, I went to the gym, scratch that off my list. That's I've got one win today. And then after that, it's kind of the rest of your to-do list gets easier.
Have you always been a morning runner?
No,
No,
absolutely
okay,
not. I was not a morning person at all
really?
prior to when you become a dad. You kind of don't have a choice. You become a morning person. But no, I've always been by nature. I've been a night owl.
Oh,
And so yeah, so I've just recently become a morning runner.
which do
I
you
say
like?
recently within the last 4 years now.
Well, aside of if your daughter's schedule were completely flexible to yours, which we know that's not how it works
Right.
with parenthood, but would you stick with the morning routine or do you like an evening routine better when it comes to your fitness?
Uh, I think I'd probably stick with a morning routine just
Yeah.
simply because it's easier to keep doing what you're used to doing. An evening routine would not be out of the question.
Yeah.
But likely I'll stick to a morning routine.
No, you kind of touched on, you're maintaining a healthy lifestyle and getting your weight in check was part of the reason you picked back up running and fitness. How did your nutrition change and how do you, if you do, change it for your running?
To be honest, that's still something that I struggle with.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a bit of a foodie, so
Yeah.
I like a good greasy cheeseburger. I like pizza. I like barbecue. I like burn ends. I don't hardly drink anymore, but I used to like to drink beer.
Mhm.
So it's kind of I would say it's a bit of a work in progress, but I try to eat healthy most of the time. Especially I'm very structured about for breakfast and for lunch. I eat the same. I start my day with a power bar
Mhm.
before I go work out. Then after my workout, I eat fruit. And then generally I have the same lunch every day too. It's a roast beef and cheese sandwich with mustard. And then kind of my afternoon snack is hard-boiled eggs and mixed nuts. And
Mhm.
then for supper changes every day. But
Yeah.
for the most part during the week, I eat the exact same thing for before dinner.
Do you have a go-to snack or beverage that you like after a long run or a real hard workout?
No, I stick with the same thing every
Same
day.
thing?
So it's whether it's a hard or regardless of how hard it is, it's generally I'll eat some mixed fruit. Strawberries, grapes, apples, things like that. It stays pretty consistent.
You said you weren't very competitive. Have you ran some of the 5 and 10Ks around here, or do you usually just stick to
No, I think my days of competition are over. It
Yeah.
was I mean it was fun, and I accomplished some things in my younger years, and
Mhm.
I just don't as far as pushing yourself to the point of being able to perform at a high level at my age. I just don't think that's it's just not something that appeals to me at this point. I just do it more for the
Yeah.
mental and physical health, but really more the mental health aspect of it than anything.
Well, that's a
I'll,
big
as
thing.
far as far as competition, I'll keep my competitive nature focused on my business.
That sounds good. I think the mental aspect is very important too. What are some of the benefits you feel mentally that you get most out of working out?
Well, one thing I like to do is I have a um, smartwatch,
Mhm.
and I have my earbud, which I haven't right now, and I read audiobooks. Well, I say read or listen or whatever you want to
Right.
call it, audiobooks. A lot of the times whenever I'm running, and that's time that I'm not doing anything else. So it's I've probably completed over the year I want to say probably 30 plus audiobooks.
Mhm.
Generally, I gravitate towards things that are, marketing related or self-help related, or, every now and then I'll indulge with I'm kind of an American history nerd, so I'll
Okay.
indulge myself with a book like that. But, it gives me an opportunity to, so during that time that I'm running, I'm also, reading. So that helps out. And then there's sometimes whenever there's, if there's a, problem I'm trying to get sorted out, that I'm going to be facing that day or in the coming days, a lot of times I'll, take my earbud out and just kind of, you know, in the solitude, just kind of talk to
Yeah.
myself and, hey, kind of sound this out. How does it, does this sound like a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Just kind of help, resolve things. So, and then plus the endorphins.
Yes.
I didn't even touch on that. It's, whenever I have something that, uh, it's very rare that I skip a workout, but on a morning that I do, I can definitely tell, that I'm not quite the same that day.
If you could recommend one book to entrepreneurs or business owners, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I was not prepared for that question.
Okay. Well, then how about
Uh, no, no,
not
no.
even the best?
Let me think about it for a second.
Okay.
Um, the last book, actually, the last book I finished was called Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Okay.
which is a pretty well known book. It's about how it's the author had his dad was educated but didn't have much money, and when he did have money, he didn't really hold on to it.
Mm.
His friend's dad was a business owner, and held on to money, and even when he lost money, he gained it back. And so the book kind of talks about habits, as far as, and spoiler, it's, to be, the rich dad, you need to own your own business, is kind of one of the things um, that the book touches on. So that's probably, um, and that's kind of I've actually, that's been on my list for a long time, and I finally got around to reading it, and that was really good. Your question was about entrepreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs,
Um,
business owners.
Probably the one of the most interesting that I've read, and it's been a couple of years now, is How to Get a Meeting with Anyone,
Oh, okay.
by Stu Heineck. And I think that's how his name is pronounced. And if he's watching this, I apologize if I mispronounced it. Um, but no, really great book about, with me, it's in the marketing, uh, you know, profession. I'm kind of one of those rare most marketing people. They love selling it, and then they're like, "Oh crap, now I got to do the work."
Mm-hmm.
I love doing the work, and then I'm like, "Oh crap, I need to get some clients." So I'm not, by nature, I'm not a salesperson.
Uh-huh.
Um, so well, and I say that, but if I get a meet, if I get 5 meetings, I'm going to get 2 clients out of it.
Okay.
It's a numbers game. It's just, I don't, I struggle with the process of, um, you know, forcing myself to do the things you have to do to get the meeting, you know,
Yeah.
uh, you know, cold calling, scheduling, and, once you schedule something, and, half the time it's going to reschedule, and, generating leads and following up on leads. And, that part is not like second nature to me. So I have
Yeah.
to really be diligent. But as far as like actually, sitting down and having the meeting, that's one of the things that one of my favorite shows is Mad Men. Do you watch Mad Men?
I've seen it. I not consecutively for a long time, but pieces here and there.
Yeah, the main character is Don Draper, and he's known for, he'll get a meeting and he can, talk anybody into anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very impressive, but I kind of watch it in the back of my head. I'm like, well, Don's not setting up those meetings. Let's
Yeah.
show the guy who's actually getting those people walking in the door.
Yeah.
Let's focus a little bit of the series on that. Uh, but
Do you do a lot of networking?
not as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Um, I've found that a lot of times it's probably my biggest clients I've gotten entirely on accident. I hate to say, just kind of somebody knows somebody who knows me, and
Yeah.
it's worked out that way. A lot of them's just been, picking up the phone and calling and getting the right person at the right time. Uh, walking in a new business and, hey, we're looking for, an ad guy. So, um, um, I can't remember your original question. Did I answer it?
Networking. I was just curious
Oh, okay. Yeah.
about
Network. So
network.
I didn't really get, I went to some networking events. I still go to networking events from time to time, but as
Yeah.
far as, getting clients, I didn't really get a ton
Mhm.
out of that.
Where do you see your business going in the next year or so? Do you see it expanding? Do you see yourself adding more things in? What's it look like, or what do you hope for it to look like?
I definitely see it expanding.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's restaurants, coffee shops, and bars is my primary focus right now, and I enjoy that, and I want to continue to do that and grow that side. But I also want to. I told you about some of my best clients. I've got on accident. One of them is a nonprofit
Mhm.
that I work with that I never intended to. Wasn't on my radar. It was just kind of one of those things where somebody knew somebody, and I started doing work for this group, and they do great things for the community, and it kind of, I guess I didn't really realize that I was missing from, when I was in the newspaper industry, I felt like I was doing a service to the community.
Yeah.
I made a good living in the newspaper industry, but nobody gets rich doing that. So it's not, I felt like I was, bringing something of value to the community. And that's not to say that, promoting restaurants isn't valuable. It is. But kind of from more of a, I guess, personal fulfillment, whenever, I'm working with a nonprofit organization that has a good mission that I believe
Yeah.
in. It kind of fills that hole that I didn't even realize was there.
When you're working with a client, what are some of the things that you help them work through? I mean, you say marketing, and actually today, and it seems like today, marketing kind of means different things to different people. You've got
Yeah.
social media marketing, social media strategists. You've got, I guess, hate to use the term old school marketing, but a little more
hmm
classic, traditional. What does it look like for a client that says, here's my business, what do you do? So what's that?
Well, something unique about me is I'm 43 years old, so I grew up without the internet, but I've had it my entire adult life.
Right.
So that's we're kind of part of that group. There's never been before and never will be again.
Mm-hmm.
So we have kind of a both perspectives. Um, but as far as what I try to do is when everyone else is zigging, zag.
Ah,
And I don't want to, and I would never denigrate any kind of marketing, but a lot of people are realtors, for example. A lot of times I'll talk to a realtor and they're, oh, I'm going to advertise on Facebook. All the realtors are advertising on Facebook, and I'll kind of sit there, and as the conversation goes on, I'll say, you've just pointed out a great reason not to advertise on
right.
Facebook.
Yeah.
You don't want to fit in, you want to stand out. So most primarily what I do, and we're a full service agency, but primarily what I do is I place ads targeted to people based on age, gender, um, income, browsing history, hobbies, uh, geography, of course, on websites and apps. And the reason that I focus on websites and apps is because you're on a website or app for one of two reasons. You either find it entertaining or credible.
Hmm.
So with Facebook, it's I'm on Facebook all the time. I hate Facebook. I think everybody kind of has a love-hate relationship with
Mm-hmm.
it. Instagram, it's rainy and cloudy, and I log in, and my buddy's on the beach in Florida, and it's just like
I don't like
Twitter.
that.
Twitter's kind of I don't even want to get into Twitter, but
Right.
um, but the I think that people spend money when and where they're happy.
Mm.
So
Mm.
kind of like the NFL draft is tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I remember kind of when I first started doing this kind of advertising when I was in the newspaper industry. I was the Chiefs had drafted somebody in the third round. I don't remember who it was, but it's a Saturday, and I'm sitting on my couch, and so I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to Arrowhead Pride, one of the blogs that Chiefs blogs that I read, and read up on this guy. And I go there, and it's an ad for the bar, one of the bars there in town. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like my, the algorithms knew, okay, this guy's sitting on his couch watching the NFL draft. He needs to go out to the bar and have a beer while he's doing it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's amazing how much your devices know about you. And as far as our, and I'm actually kind of working on a book on this right now. I haven't gotten too far, so I don't want to give away too many details. But
Sure.
our brains have only evolved so much, since the caveman and cavewoman days. So um, whenever so let's say that I'm reading about the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off a Super Bowl year, I have those happy neurons firing in my head. And then I get down to an ad for uh, Mother's Brewing, for example. Those happy neurons are still firing whenever I see that ad.
Right.
Because our brains are like I said, it's association at that point. Or if you're a law firm and you're reading an article on, we'll say, Wall Street Journal, you're reading that because you find the Wall Street Journal credible. So those neurons are firing in your head. You get down to an ad for this law firm, and those neurons are still firing. So the brand association, we have, and I wish I remember who said this quote. It was in one of the recent books that I read. But the quote was, "We think that our conscious brain is the Oval Office, but it's actually the press office.
Hmm.
The subconscious brain is calling the shots." And of course, like for the big,
Yeah.
for the bigger things, yes, we're thinking it out, and buying a house, and things of that nature. But there are so many decisions we face on a day-to-day basis. We can't do that for all of them. We can't even do that for 80% of them. So
Mm-hmm.
we have these shortcuts in our head that, as far as, hey, whenever this happens, I do this. I tell people, um, kind of, if they doubt that, go home, look in their pantries, and they will see brand after brand after brand that they're highly loyal to. And most of the time, they have no idea why
Mm-hmm.
they're so loyal to that brand. They just are. Hey, we need some seasoning, and go to the store and pick up Old Bay. Oh, I've heard of Old Bay. My mom used
Yeah.
Old Bay. And then you get it once, and then for the rest of your life, that's the seasoning you pick up when you go to the store. Um, so hope I didn't ramble on too much there.
No, excellent points. Hope you'll come back when you're ready to promote that book. Thank you for sharing about your running journey and your business. Appreciate your time. Like I said, come back when you're ready to.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jacob. Be sure you're following along at runradio.net.